So this is a story that caught my eye. I've been really interested in it. We just learned that a deadly bacteria was found in an aromatherapy product sold at Walmart. The spray, sold under the Better Homes and Gardens brand, may be linked to 4 cases of a rare bacterial illness, and 2 people have died. So this is really something. Let me give you the specifics. So there's 4 cases, one in Georgia, one in Kansas, one in Minnesota, and one in Texas. 2 of the people, including a child, have died. The Consumer Product Safety Commission announced that Walmart, which sold the product, is recalling nearly 4,000 bottles. So the product is Better Homes and Gardens Lavender and Chamomile Essential Oil Infused Aromatherapy Room Spray with Gemstone. It just looks like, what you'd see at almost any store in the U.S. Some, room spray to make your room smell less funky. Deadly bacteria called Burkholderia pseudomallei, however you say it, is what was in it. And they say that this bacteria is most commonly found in water or soil in Southeast Asia or northern Australia. It's like a tropical deadly bacteria. And on average, there's about a dozen cases in the U.S. each year, but it's usually among people who have traveled overseas to these areas. So what happens is people get this illness. It's called melioidosis, and it's treatable with antibiotics, but, you got to kind of catch it early on. And since it's incredibly rare in the U.S., doctors really don't know to look for it. But when they ask people questions, and when people say, I've traveled to this place or that place, doctors will know if it was a tropical area, hey, it's possible that it's this, and then they would be able to treat it. But in this instance, the people didn't travel, and so doctors really were kind of clueless as to what these people had. And here's the kicker. So what are the symptoms? Respiratory illnesses, such as the flu. It like mimics either the flu or even tuberculosis. And the symptoms include a cough, fever, and chest pain. So here's my guess as to what happened. These people went to the hospital and they thought they had COVID. And the doctors probably thought they had COVID. If I was a doctor, I would have thought they had COVID. And you treat them for that. And the treatment for COVID, look, COVID's a virus. And so you give antiviral treatment for COVID. And we've gone through the list of stuff that you might give, whether it's the Regeneron stuff, the monoclonal antibodies, azithromycin, some steroids. Like there are ways that we know help fighting back against a virus, but those antiviral treatments are going to do Dickie McGeezax against a bacterial infection, which is what this is. So they were treating them probably for that, and they got worse and worse, and 2 of them died. So the tragedy, there's a number of tragedies embedded in this story, but this was totally treatable if they gave them antibiotics. So somebody comes in, showing these symptoms, they have this illness, you just give them antibiotics, they're going to get better. You ever had strep throat before? I used to get strep throat like every other year as a kid. You just give me antibiotics and I'm better, like pretty quickly. And this was treatable, but the doctors couldn't figure it out because it was just in a product and these people didn't travel, and so some of the people died. So there are multiple layers of failure here. Listen, you can't blame the doctors too much. They just didn't know. But if you're giving antiviral treatment and like otherwise young, healthy people are getting worse and worse and dying, I would imagine that at some point you would think maybe as a Hail Mary, just give them antibiotics and see what happens. Maybe it is some bacterial thing, then we don't know what it is. And then maybe that could have saved some lives. So you can't blame the doctors because they just didn't know. But as I was reading the story, that was one of the things I thought. If I kept giving them antiviral treatment and they kept getting worse, I would have said, maybe it's not COVID. And then you'd throw a Hail Mary. If it's not a virus, maybe it is a bacterial infection. And you give them antibiotics and just see what happens. But they didn't do that. But the real issue is what? Guys, the lack of regulation in our economy. You could have some Better Homes and Gardens room spray, and it's just like, by the way, tropical disease in that, it could kill you. What? Where's the regulation? How do we know now? Like, as I read this, I was thinking, Jesus Christ. So how do we know it's not in other versions of the same spray? And by the way, they pulled like all the different scents of all the sprays because I think they comes from the same region where they make it. So But how do we know it's also not in other, home cleaning products? I don't know. Make one up. Windex, a 409, whatever. How do we know that they don't have negative? How do we know it's not in Lysol or whatever? We don't. And the fact of the matter is that with our weak regulation in this country, probably only a tiny percentage of all this stuff ever gets checked. And so you have this disastrous consequence of people dying, and it's like we're always playing catch-up. So it's always after the fact, oh shit, people are dying. Or now pull the product. And so that's what they're doing. But, I mean, this is a good case in point that we need better regulation of this stuff. I guess you could say the only upside is how quickly they were able to act after they finally learned what it was. They did a big investigation, and they found out this was the same thing that all the houses shared as the spray. But then the other thing is, I've always made this argument on this show. Some people say I'm too protectionist for making this argument. But anything that can be made in America should be made in America. Like, I believe in trade with other nations, but I believe in trading for things that we are totally incapable of creating here. So, is it possible that we have the ingredients to make some sort of delicious-smelling room spray here? Probably. And, I think those products, on top of the workers being paid better, those products would probably be safer. And you can increase the regulation as well to make sure the products are safer. So anything that can be manufactured in America should be manufactured in America. We should increase the regulatory state to make sure that products are safe. And it's just so heartbreaking when a random room spray bought at Walmart to make the room smell better just killed 2 people and made 4 people sick. I get it, small numbers, but it just shows you, how sort of undeveloped everything still is. You know what I mean? Like, we're still sort of at the whims of the corporations to hopefully get it right. And oftentimes they don't give a fuck if they get it right or not. They just sort of create the product and deal with all the issues later. And they're liable to cut corners in 1,000 different ways if it means they make an extra penny. So, increase the regulatory state to make sure these products are safe. By the way, the entire supplement industry is unregulated. They should regulate the supplement industry. Whatever you can create in America, create in America. And it just sucks that these people couldn't get that last minute, a doctor saying, just give them antibiotics and see what happens. And some people died as a result of it. So my layman's advice is stay away from room sprays at this moment, because Lord only knows however many others have it. It's just a heartbreaking situation all around.